How does God want me to stand politically?
Well, God definitely wants you to be political. It's not now finding direction in all the specifics of certain issues. Of course, that takes a lot of prayer and wisdom and investigation. I think the bigger questions to really tackle when you're thinking about how to be politically active is you have to think about your posture and you have to think about the long-term goal. So what are you trying to achieve, your goal, and how should you go about achieving it? I think those are really the important questions to answer before you go to specific little issues, proposals, propositions, or stuff like that, is how should I be political and what's my goal? Because that will determine how you view politics and how you are active in politics. And I think from Daniel, again, this guy in a foreign land, just as we are, we're strangers and sojourners, as the Bible describes us. We are waiting to go into heaven. That's where our citizenship lies. We're still here. And so how do we exist here in a nation that's not built to in a way that is worshiping to God? It's not God's nation. So Daniel's posture, I think, is very helpful for us. And Daniel runs himself into a really big problem when he first gets into Babylon. So Daniel learns, and his kind of friends, they get into this school. They're learning all this stuff. They're learning the king's ideology, pagan philosophy, all these different things, and they're excelling, and they do well. And so they're promoted, and they're what's called advisors. And so the king trusts these guys. Well, the king comes in, and in Daniel chapter 2, he has this terrible dream. And he can't understand the dream, and he says he's troubled. So he goes up to his advisors and he says, all right, guys, I need to know what's going on. But he makes it very hard for them because the king does not trust his advisors. So what he tells them is, guys, this is what I want you to do. I'm not going to tell you the dream. I want you to tell me the dream and its interpretation. So you think these guys have now got to guess what on earth was the king dreaming and what's the interpretation mean? It's already hard enough to interpret dreams, right? I mean, there's crazy stuff going on in our heads at times. But it's so hard to know what somebody else is dreaming. And they basically say, this is impossible, king. You put too much on us. And the king says, no, you do this or I will tear you limb from limb. And so he threatens their life. And he puts this threat on everybody. So now Daniel and his friends and all the other wise men are under this threat. So Daniel hears about this and he tells his friends, guys, you got to pray. You got to pray because this is impossible. This is impossible. We can't just make up the interpretation because he gave us the dream. We have to tell him the dream and the interpretation. So Daniel says, guys, pray. Pray, pray, pray. And then Daniel goes before the king and he basically tells the king his dream and the interpretation. And you think Daniel has a primary opportunity right here to really advance himself because God grants him the wisdom to know the dream and the interpretation. Daniel can use that to leverage himself above everybody else. But that's not Daniel's posture at all. Before he ever tells the king, here's your dream and here's interpretation, this is what Daniel says in Daniel chapter 2, verse 30. He says, but as for me, this mystery, right, your dream and its interpretation, has been revealed to me, not because of any wisdom that I have more than all the living. So right there he tells him, it's not me. It's God. God gave this to me. So right there we see Daniel is so humble. And I think we can learn a ton from Daniel in our posture politically. Daniel comes into a time where he can easily advance his agenda. He gets an opportunity where he can easily promote himself and promote his viewpoints and promote what he wants. He can easily leverage the king. But he doesn't. Right? He humbly comes in. And I think what we learn from Daniel there is we never should have a posture of superiority. You're never going to win a skeptic by acting superior, right? You're never going to win an argument by being arrogant. And so we can learn a lot from the posture that Daniel has. He's humble, right? And he's persuasive, and he's not arrogant, and he's not has a sense of inflated, pride about him. And then I think in that same chapter, we see the goal that we should be shooting for. So Daniel interprets the dream, and basically the dream means that his kingship is coming to an end. The kingdoms will come after him, but God's going to bring in a kingdom. And this is in Daniel chapter 2, verse 44, he gets to the end of the interpretation and says this: "In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break into pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever." Right there, I think that not only we learn from his posture, we need to be humble, just like he was humble. When he was humble in the land, not superior, not arrogant. We need to be humble, not superior, not arrogant when we're in a foreign land. But the end right there, he says, a kingdom is coming and God brings it, not us. See, too many times what we think in our political endeavors is we are going to bring God's kingdom on earth, right? We're going to usher in God's kingdom. And so if we get the right politician and the right policies, then God's kingdom, it's going to be like heaven on earth. Well, that's never going to happen. God brings the kingdom that lasts forever, not a ballot box, right? No candidate, no policy, no nation will ever create itself to be the kingdom of God. God will usher in the kingdom. And so if we have a goal when we're political that we're going to usher in God's kingdom, we'll be incredibly defeated when we lose a candidate. We'll be incredibly defeated when we lose a proposition, because we'll think, we're losing, the kingdom's never going to happen. Or if we win, we'll become incredibly elitist, right? Incredibly proudful and boastful because, look, we've brought in God's kingdom. We've advanced his agenda. And we can't have that position. Our goal should not be that. That's the wrong goal. The wrong goal is we're not bringing in the kingdom of God. Now, with that may sound like, well, Paul, then I shouldn't be political. If I'm not bringing in the kingdom, then I shouldn't vote. I shouldn't be politically active. I shouldn't lobby. No. We just need to have the right goal. And the right goal is to do good by the nation. And so a contemporary of Daniel was this prophet named Jeremiah. And Jeremiah gives the people instructions as they're leaving their homeland, as God is taking them away, right? They've been punished for their sin. They're being taken away into Babylon. Jeremiah gives them some instructions. Now this is what he says in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 4. He says this: "Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles," those are the people leaving, "whom I have sent into exile from Israel or from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses, live in them, plant gardens, and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for their sons, and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters, multiply there, and do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord for its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare." What is he telling them there? He's saying build, plant, marry. Now those three ideas right there, if we take those back to Deuteronomy chapter 20, these were the exemptions to warfare. So when Israel was a nation and they were going into battle, if somebody had just built a house, planted a vineyard, or were just given in marriage, they didn't have to go into war. And what is Jeremiah saying? He's saying, do these things in the land. What is he telling them? This is not wartime. This is not fight time. Don't go out there thinking, all right, let's win our political battle. We got this. And he's saying, no, when you're in Babylon, it's not time for warfare. It's time to think about the peace of this city. Think about the good of the city. So what's our right goal? Our goal is not to bring God's kingdom down, but it's to do good to this kingdom, right? So we vote our conscience. We vote for moral candidates. We vote our convictions. We lobby. We petition. We try to do good, but we don't have a false sense of hope that we're ushering in God's kingdom, but we do have a sense that we're making this earth better. Like we want God to bless America. But we have a sober understanding that America is not God's kingdom coming down on earth. So I think to be political, you need to have the right posture and you need to have the right goal. And that will allow us to be humble and work for the good of the nation at the same time.